Hey, what's up, dude? Can you hear me?
What's up, guys? Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just getting stuff set up for YouTube. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Yeah. Awesome. That looks good. Do. All right. If you're already logged into YouTube and you're watching, we're going to be starting a live interview with the Terra Rebels in just a couple minutes. So just go ahead and hang out, and we will be back to you at exactly 6 o'clock Eastern. Hey, here we go.
Yeah, now I figured it out. I'm used to using Microsoft Teams, so I was like, what's this notification about? I'm clicking the wrong button. So how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We got a couple other guys coming in, right?
Yeah, I mean, both Matthew and Ed should be coming. I see Ed just got online, and Matthew confirmed like 10 minutes ago, so they should be turning up shortly.
Sounds good. So I'm gonna mute everything for now, and we'll get started right on time at 6 o'clock as soon as those guys get in. All right.
Cool.
All right, Zara. Bye.
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Hey, how's it going? Finally, a face to the name.
Hey guys.
Hey,
Just chilling. Hey, Ed.
Hey.
You all had a good day?
yeah,
It's like super hot here, but yeah.
Yeah, the same here. Seems like we're just gonna get a heat wave the next couple of weeks. It's gonna be interesting. See how that plays out.
it's quite chilly here now in the UK compared to how it was earlier.
That's
Really.
nice. Mm.
I'll be honest, I'm kind of having fun just sitting back watching you guys.
Yeah,
What's
well,
going on, everybody? How you guys doing?
Doing
doing
well.
good, man.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, awesome. Is this your first time all on camera doing this kind of thing as a team?
We've had a few meetings, Ed and I, with some other parties, but other than
Okay.
that, yeah, I guess it is.
Yep.
Okay,
All together, I
good.
think so.
All right. All right. So everybody, YouTube, welcome. This is our live interview with some of the Terra rebels. We have Zaradar, we have EK, and we have Raider. Guys, but before I already talked to Zaradar about this. Before I get started with everything, there is something in Europe, not in the United States, but in Europe called the GDPR rule. And this was a concern whenever we were going to do some sort of interview. It's basically a general data protection regulations. And I'm not going to get into all the legality of it, but basically it says that anywhere, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, anywhere within 3 years, if you decide that, you had a, booger in your nose or something, and you want me to delete this whole thing, you can ask me to do that. And there are some other legalities to it. So we weren't sure that we were going to be able to do this, but the gentlemen who are from Europe, and that's Raider and Zaradar, have agreed that they are going to waive this for the duration of this interview. Is that right, gentlemen?
That's correct.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And I don't have to worry about because he's in Philly. So we're good. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. I mean, it's just, nothing I've had to deal with before, but I mean, I appreciate you guys bringing it to my attention.
Yeah,
And that's
we're
awesome.
a bunch of socialists over here, right? So we have all sorts of funny rules.
Yeah, well, I think there are funny rules no matter where you go. You should hear some of ours. You guys are having a bit of a heat wave out in England, yeah?
It was. It's cooled down quite a bit now. Thankfully,
Has
it got up to 40 degrees in some parts of England. 40 degrees without AC is not fun. Most private homes don't have air conditioning in the UK.
Okay, when you say 40 degrees to an American, I think that's freezing cold.
No, it's Celsius, 40 degrees
Right.
Celsius.
Ed, what is it like in Philly? Because I'm like maybe 300 miles from you, and we're having a crazy heat wave right now.
Definitely. I think today it hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All
It's
right.
brutal out there.
All right. Enough of the small talk. These guys wanted to come on. They wanted to introduce themselves to the community, say hi, let everybody know who they are, what they're doing. So I really want to get into some of that. Why don't we start with Zaradar, because he's kind of the voice of all these AMAs that I've been listening to. And to me, he sounds like the Terminator. You don't look like Arnold, but I love the voice.
I'm
Zoran,
just the
why
guy
don't you
who
tell
speaks
everybody-
the most, I guess.
Yeah, tell everybody what your position is on the team and what it is that you're doing for everybody.
So my position on the team is as a development manager and architect and developer mentor. So I help onboard all the different new Terra rebels that sign up to help build out the Terra Classic ecosystem, and try to get them settled in the different teams that we've created to sort of structure responsibilities for different parts of the application. And then I help them understand technologies such as Docker or Kubernetes, or building distributed systems, or writing Go code or C# code, or whatever it takes. Then I also do security audits on all the code. So we published a few weeks ago a post-mortem on a bunch of critical flaws that me and one of our SecOps leads are working on, trying to see if we can map out a path to sort of fix, so we have less vulnerabilities in our entire software tool chain, so to speak. So that is sort of my role. So I guess you could say I'm a jack of all trades right now.
Yeah, I think a bunch of you guys are doing a lot of different roles, right? I saw kind of your help wanted sign up a little while ago, and you've got an application actually on the you know what I'm talking about. I'm having a blank here.
Discord,
on the Discord. Yeah, on the Discord. So have you gotten some good people to come in and help?
We've gotten an impressive amount of very motivated recruits, and we are talking people from Fortune 500 companies. I mean, if you look at our growth curve as an organization from a pure startup perspective, we're having phenomenal growth. I think we've grown 400%. Clearly, that has caused some ripples, and it has caused us to sort of try to structure things even more. But we have people from a lot of top companies. I can't mention the companies they work for various reasons, but we have some some really qualified people coming in.
That's awesome. And so everybody knows, in case you don't already know, and we're going to get into a lot more detail about this, but these guys are all working pro bono at this point. Everybody that you see here is a volunteer working to restore Luna Classic, LUNC. And again, we'll get into the details, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm assuming, all these people that are coming in, a lot of people are trying to jump in and help out, which is phenomenal to me, because you have lives, you have families, you have a lot of other things going on, and this is a monumental task. So it's taken a lot of your time, and I appreciate it. Ed, if you don't mind, why don't you go next?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say my role is primarily as a developer on the team. I mean, I think all three of us, Tobias and Matt, we met on GitHub because we all sort of had the same idea that when we saw that governance was broken on Luna Classic, we all tried to put a pull request in to try to fix the situation, and that's how we met. And really, I mean, I think I've been able to do a lot of focusing on the code, on Cosmos SDK, because of these guys. I mean, there's just so much stuff going on in the background that I'm able to sort of just ignore and focus on the code and put out, the best code that I can. So yeah, so my main role here is just to focus on fixing what has been broken, and then try to get that implemented. Yeah.
It's good to have you guys on my stream, because if any of you have seen my videos, and I think you have, this technical stuff, when you start talking about the code and all the rest of that, is way over my head. That's not my forte, and it's not really what my streams are about. There's a lot of guys out there who are delivering that for the community, and it's awesome. But to have you guys on to actually talk about some of this technical stuff for the people who tune in to see me, that I'm not normally able to give them, is really awesome. I appreciate that. And you brought something up that I actually wanted to ask you guys about, the genesis of this team. Everything starts with an idea. So who was the actual first person that said, you know what, I know some guys, I think I could put a team together, maybe we can get together and try to maybe fix this thing? Who made those phone calls? Who did that?
Well, I mean, I guess I can jump in and answer that one. So
right.
In terms of the idea that brought us together, we all had a kind of similar idea independently, as Ed mentioned, and we'd all coded up the change, essentially the same change, some small nuances, but essentially the same change. and we submitted our changes into the Terra Money, that's TFL's GitHub as pull requests, in order that we would hope they would review our code and maybe incorporate it into their code base. At that point, the idea, I think, from all three of us was, how do we collaborate with TFL to fix what isn't working anymore? Right. And as the days and then about a week went by, and we were not getting any kind of traction from TFL, we started communicating with each other. We reviewed each other's code changes, we made comments, and then I think it was Zaradar invited me to join the Discord, which had already been set up, and then I invited Ed to join us as well, and that's how we three came together. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that, but
yeah. Yeah, all right. No, that's good. That's awesome. And then the team just built from there. Now, originally, you guys were like something apes or something like that. Wasn't that the original name? It wasn't Terra Rebels right from the beginning.
The development side has always been called Terra Rebels. The Discord was called Lunacy Apes originally, but the Terra development team has always called itself Terra Rebels, and then we decided to rename the Discord to reflect the name of the development team, seeing as that was the largest or the fastest growing part of the Terra Rebels organization at that point in time, and it made sense to keep the focus on the Rebels. And also there was how shall we say, a lot of love for the Terra Rebels name as a name. People got behind that name.
Yeah, I got it. Right,
I
cool.
think
Good.
if I could add a bit to that. I mean, the origin of the Terra Rebels name actually was just pretty random. I was on a business trip in Spain, and I decided to fork the code after the DPEG happened. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, right? So if TFL was the Empire and I had to try to create an uprising, it would only be normal to call it Terra Rebels. And with regards to the Discord server, that is just a random occurrence. I didn't even know anybody on the Discord server. I just got invited in there. And then I started talking with some people, and I figured it was easier for Matt and Ed and myself to communicate in there. So I got them the Discord server link, and then at some point a lot of people started arriving to sort of talk about how we could fix the problem, and then it got renamed into Terra Rebels, and then I think from that the organization as a whole was kind of born.
Yeah, awesome. Rada, just to keep the continuity, tell her what exactly is it that you do for the team?
Sure. Well, I mean, as we just talked about, I started out also on the development team. We were working on how to progress our idea beyond that initial code that we'd all come up with to what is being worked on now. But as the organization grew, we obviously realized that we needed some kind of structure to the organization in order to manage the size that it was rapidly becoming. I mean, we've grown massively in a very, very short space of time. And but we wanted to keep the principles of decentralization alive. We didn't want to put in place a hierarchical management structure. We didn't want it to look like a corporation, because we're not a corporation, we're a body of volunteers. So we came up with the idea of a committee structure, which is our steering group. And I was elected through popular demand to be the chairman of the steering group. And so my role as chairman of the steering group is to ensure that the steering group as a body is active on the important decisions that affect Terra Rebels as a whole. So when a decision needs to be made that affects the whole organization, that decision is made through the steering group, which is a body of representatives of each of the key areas of Terra Rebels. And we vote on the decisions that have to be taken. The decisions are carried by the majority vote. In most cases, if not all cases, votes have been unanimous so far. We're very much aligned in our mission and in our approach. So in terms of the chairman's role of keeping the meetings orderly and organized, it's been a relatively straightforward job for me. But still, we need to have that kind. We felt we need to have that kind of professionalism, that kind of formality, to reflect the professionalism that exists within each of the teams in terms of the key skills within those teams. If you look at our technical teams, as Zaradar mentioned, we have extremely experienced, highly qualified professionals working in those teams. And the same is true in each of our other areas, our marketing team, our operations team. So we wanted the decision-making body to reflect that level of professionalism as well, and to be run in an orderly way. So we run it as a formal committee. We take minutes, we publish the minutes, we make sure that decisions and votes are recorded, and people can see transparently how we're deciding what we do. And every month, as you know, we host a public steering group meeting so that the community can get to see the steering group operate in action. And it's to try and give the community access into how we run Terra Rebels.
It's what I love most about your team. You go on that Discord and there are a lot of different rooms set up, and you go into any one of them and you're able to get some unbelievable information about exactly what you guys are doing, what you're talking about. Some of these conversations, I think in any other group, these would be conversations being held in a DM somewhere. But you guys put it all out there right for everybody to read, for everybody to see. And, you know, listen, I'm sure that there are some conversations that have to go on, you know, on the side. Things aren't necessarily ready to be brought to the public yet because you're still working them out. You want to work the details out. And, you know, we know how people can be sometimes. You give them this much information and they turn it into something totally else. So I absolutely get that has to be going on too. And that doesn't speak against transparency. That just speaks to how an organization works. You know, you'll find that same situation anywhere. There are memos that are sent out to the company, but there are also private emails that go on between people to get to that memo, right? So I get it. I appreciate it. I love it. I really do. Where are we right now? Because there are constantly developments going on, and the questions that I keep hearing questions about, you know, and you guys must be sick to death of hearing them, but when 1.25, when, you know, when this, when that, when $1, when, you know. So just briefly, whoever wants to give it to me, where are we right now?
Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, so we put out a white paper, I think it was like a month or maybe a couple of weeks ago. Things seem to go really fast these days. I put up a white paper. We have essentially taken all of the proposals that have passed governance, and we've looked at them and tried our best to implement them. And the ones that we've implemented so far are the 1.2% tax burn and the re-enabling of staking and delegation. There was another proposal, I think it was for the IBCs, but we've been reaching out to the different Cosmos SDK chain, other blockchains out there talking about re-enabling IBC. And it seems like the situation right now is that, you know, Luna Classic has been hit by a massive, you know, tsunami, hurricane, whatever you want to call it. And there are some dams that were put up, right? So there's like a flood water out there that could potentially still come and devastate Luna Classic again if we open up IBCs. We don't know the exact implications of that. And so what we want to do is, although, you know, that did pass governance, that's something that we do plan on building into the system eventually when, you know, things stabilize. I think for at least for the moment, we're going to put that one on hold and do what is sort of what we call sort of the emergency management right here. And that is re-enabling staking and delegation. That is fundamental to this is a proof of stake blockchain. And if you don't have staking, this chain is dead. Right. And so it is absolutely essential for governance, for fair governance in this situation where we have, you know, millions of new investors coming in. We have old investors, we have new investors, all have the right to vote in this situation, and it's been disabled. And I think that's wrong. And I think what we need to do is re-enable staking and delegation immediately. And then there's the tax code, which is community driven. We have our own personal opinions on whether or not that's going to be a catalyst for the chain, whether it's going to not be, but it's past governance, and that's what we focus on. We try to deliver what the community has voted on, and so that has passed the testing stage. So we did test all of our code internally. We put it on a test net. We tested the upgrade. We put all the results in our white paper. It's in the appendix. That same link that the white paper had has the test results as well. And then it came down to a situation where it's like, how do we do this by the book? I mean, we're not trying to take over this chain or anything. All we're trying to do is implement past governance, support the chain the best that we can. And so by the book, governance would be the right way to go. So we did put out in conjunction with a member who he has helped us in the past, but he has made it known that he is for V1 governance, meaning he represents the Terra Classic community first and foremost. And so I think it was important for him to put this proposal forward. And so we're doing the proper channels here. We're going to solicit right now we're in the solicitation phase. We're talking to validators, we're talking to the community. Basically, we're talking to everyone that would have a part in this, asking for feedback, asking them to do their due diligence, look at the code if they have the technical expertise, tell us if there's anything that they see that could potentially be harmful to the chain. We have asked members of TFL, and I don't want to name them out, but we are talking to members of TFL and asking them to look at the code. Whether they do or not is up to them. We're talking to independent security firms. I think there was one that was suggested by a validator. I reached out to them and I'm asking them do an audit. We're happy to be completely open here. And then I think in maybe the next 24, 48 hours, we're going to put a governance proposal out and have people vote on that as the distribution of V21. Now, if at any point, TFL comes in and says, we want to help you, or we have a different solution, I think we would gladly welcome that. I mean, the whole thing about this is to restore staking and governance on this chain. And so, yeah, I mean, this is really, we're reaching out here. This is not a takeover. This is someone come please help us, essentially. Yeah. Otherwise, we're gonna have to do it ourselves.
Right. Just to go back, excuse me, to something that you said in the middle there. So it's been a question a few times about this 1.2% tax, and as to whether that was going to be a catalyst or not. And you mentioned something about, you guys might have your own ideas on it. And some people have suggested that it's very much not going to be. And I personally have had to speak to people about the fact that they don't believe it's going to be a catalyst. In fact, they think that it could potentially be detrimental. And they don't understand why you guys aren't expressing your views on that and telling people, what the consequences are. And what I had to explain, and you can correct me if I was wrong in explaining it this way. What I had to explain is that that's not your job. What you're trying to do is establish governance, get the validators on, get the system working so that whatever proposals come out and we vote on them, what's going to happen is according to what we vote on. It's not your position to tell the community, well, that's a shitty proposal or that's a great proposal. That's not what you're here for. Am I right about that?
Yeah. I mean, if I can take that, I think Since our first meeting with the validators, we've been very clear on our view of the effect of the burn tax. With our calculations, the burn tax will take maybe 100 years to actually make a dent in the supply. And we think that as such, it's a good beginning to unify the community, to heal the divide, and basically restore the developer branch of the community that was broken when TFL left. And that is why the burn tax is important in the sense that it will bring things together. And then we have other things we've been working on with our quant team towards sort of looking at implementing solutions that will then increase the burn or deflation of long tokens even faster with regards to the swap mechanism itself, and how we can build what we call the V2 algorithm. Because quite frankly, for me personally, the reason why I got into Terra in the first place was because the swap mechanism was the interesting feature of this particular blockchain. And it was that particular feature that created the supply, and it's also that particular feature that is most capable of burning the supply. And we've been quite clear on all of this consistently, but unfortunately, people don't always listen. And as we've often said, it's not our role to decide what is done. It is our role to advise, and then it's for the investors and the holders of tokens to basically figure out if they will follow our advice or if they go in some other direction.
Yeah, and if I can just add a bit to that as well.
Sure.
I think the really critical thing, as you mentioned, is that when the community votes on a proposal and it passes, our job is to impartially implement that as the community requested. It's not our job to question something that has gone through the governance process and has passed. Right. There's a process, a current existing process on a forum called Agora, where proposals are kind of discussed in a pre-proposal format, and people get to comment and refine them before they get put into the governance system as an official proposal. And that is the place where the community and potentially members of Terra Rebels will get to advise and give opinions on whether ideas are good ideas or not. But once they get into the governance system and people vote on them, our job then is to put our own personal opinions aside and to be impartial, effective software developers to implement those proposals.
Yeah, I got you right, and that's exactly what I tried to explain to someone, maybe even a few people. So it's good to hear it coming from you guys directly. I appreciate that. All right, I want to ask you a question this way. When is this thing completed? When do you say, when do we get to the point where you're like, okay, we did what we set out to do, it's done, we're good now?
That is an interesting question, because the concept of done keeps changing as the weeks go by. I think obviously the easy answer is to say that our initial objective, our primary objective, being the restoration of governance and the implementation of the burn tax, which has been successfully passed through governance, that marks a key milestone where Terra Rebels can say that its immediate primary objective has been achieved once that is in mainnet and live, and those features are active, governance is restored to the community. But as Zaradar mentioned, beyond that, there is a whole raft of potential work to be done, both in the core protocol and in terms of new utility on top of the blockchain itself that will help to bring new life to the Terra Classic blockchain. And I think we all feel that Terra Rebels wants to be front and center as part of those activities.
Okay. All right. So yeah, obviously once we get the governance going, it's a matter of bringing validators from the first system over to this new system. How many do we need? How many do we think we have? How close are we?
You want to take this one, Ed?
Sure. So we do have I guess towards the validator outreach, there are other members of the team that that's sort of their primary focus right now. And so I don't know, I hear from him. And so what he has told me, the last number that I've heard was 46% of the validators are on board. That's of the voting power. And so I guess this does sort of beg some explanation. Each validator, okay, so blocks on the blockchain, they're generated about every 6 seconds, and then one validator out of the set, and right now we have 90 in the active set. One validator puts forward a block, says these are the transactions that have happened in the past 6 seconds. Everyone, please take a look and make sure that this is correct according to your own code. So they all sort of look at the block, they run the transactions, and they come up with this hash, which is just like a string of numbers that represents all the transactions that have happened. And they put forth that hash, and everyone sort of checks the hashes to make sure they're all the same. And so what happens is they all have voting power based upon the amount of staked Luna that they either have self-delegated or other people have delegated to them. And that voting power sort of represents how much vote they have in this they call this consensus mechanism. And so if a minority, let's say like less than 1/3 of the validators put forth a block hash that doesn't match everybody else, then they will be essentially that block will be rejected. And if they continue to do that, they'll be jailed, which is mean they can no longer participate in the voting process. If it's between 1/3 and 2/3 of the voting power, that's a critical point, because at this point, the other validators on the system say something really is wrong here, because more than 1/3 of you are telling me that this is the hash. We're just going to stop. And so the whole chain is just going to halt, and then they go into this loop, and this loop goes on forever until something happens. Either the one group sort of redoes the checks of the transactions and puts forth the right hash, and at the point that 2/3 of the voting power put forth the same hash, that is when the chain will start to move again, and new blocks will be created. And then the ones that haven't, that still are putting forth the old hash, they're going to get slashed and jailed, and they won't be able to participate anymore. So the number here is we need 1/3 of the voting power of the validators to halt the chain. And this is going to essentially, it's going to force like a standoff, right? Because we have 46 right now. If this goes in at this very moment, if this goes in with 46% of the voting power, the chain's going to halt. And this is not unusual, because if we go back to whatever, May 11th, May 12th, when the whole DPEG thing happened, what TFL did was put out a patch that disabled staking and delegation, and they said everybody needs to run this right now. And then 1/3 of the voting power ran it, and the chain halted. And the chain was halted for I want to say it was like almost 2 days, or maybe it was a little bit less than 2 days, where everyone was just waiting for validators to pick up the new code and install it and run it on their system. And so this idea of halting is, this is essentially how it's been done in the past. They put out code, and for the most part, they have at least 1/3. And then if they have 2/3, the transition is smooth. If they have less than 2/3, then a halt has happened.
I appreciate you breaking that down that way, because I think a lot more people can understand it that way. Not everybody's a blockchain specialist or You know, you guys throw acronyms out sometimes, and you know, it's like, I don't know. You ever see the Charlie Brown cartoons where the parents are wah 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 wah, right? It's how it comes off sometimes. So I appreciate the way you broke that down. After all the work that you've done, and you've really come a long way, can somebody from TFL just kind of step in and say, thanks, guys, we'll take it from here, and just take the thing over again?
Basically, I would say yes, they could, but at the end of the day, our mission was never to be the ones driving the car. We became the ones driving the car by accident. And I think we've said this multiple times, if Do Kwon and TFL came back and assumed responsibility and stepped up to the plate and started doing things to restore governance, then we would have no problem with that. Because then inherently we would still have succeeded, right? Our goal is to fix the change.
You made them do it. Yeah. No, I get it. All right, I understand that. You're not trying to take over the chain. I got that. You're coming up with workarounds to kind of strong arm them, I guess, into doing the right thing, adopting the new code. Has anything like this ever been done before?
I would say there's one precedent with regards to EOS that decided to kick Block 1 out of the consensus body and basically take over. And we are looking a lot at their sort of history and what they did to sort of basically establish a constitution that amounts to an end user license agreement for all parties working with the chain, and ensuring distributed governance is fair, and basically rebuilding their ecosystem after that particular incident. So you could say that their developers didn't leave, they were asked to leave in one way or the other, right? So I guess that is the only real precedent we have in this case.
So I've got weird ways of looking at things, right? What you guys are doing basically is, as you say, not taking over someone else's, blockchain, manipulating it, doing some certain things. I mean, I look at you guys like the kind of the Robin Hoods of blockchain, right? Because what you're doing, I mean, I don't know how ethical it really is, right? Going into somebody else's thing and totally changing it around. But the reason that you're doing it is obviously very moral, okay? A lot of people lost their shirt on this one. And what you're doing is not only going to help, new investors, but potentially help a lot of people who lost a lot on that crash, maybe to recoup a little something, okay? But I mean, am I right? It's kind of like computer hackery kind of stuff, right?
Well, I think you have to look at the history of blockchain development since the beginning of Bitcoin. All of this has been based off open source. Pretty much all of the blockchain technologies run under Apache 2 licenses. And I think this is one of the reasons why Matt and Ed and myself had such an easy time getting together. We're all used to working in open source ecosystems. I've been doing it for years. Most of the code I produce at work, I produce as open source on GitHub, so anybody can review the code that goes into my company's business systems and so on. We live and breathe open source, so it becomes sort of natural for us to do that. Okay. And that's also why I don't think there's any real ethical concerns here in that sense, because I mean, at some point we're just helping these guys fix the problem because they're not here to do it.
Yeah. I mean, Do Kwon said he's going to help out in any way that he can, right? Have we heard anything from him? I mean, I know that you said that, there are some people over at TFL that, their names will go unmentioned, but they're kind of helping out. Have we heard anything from the top guy other than that tweet?
Not to my knowledge, but I also have the opinion that he probably can't really speak to the public that much due to whatever legal backlash he's currently focusing. So quite frankly, I just have empathy for his situation. I think he tried to do something that he thought was smart. It backfired. this happens. It was unfortunate, but right now he's probably in a situation where he can't do a lot, and that's just how it is, I think.
I was actually kind of surprised he even came out with the tweets he came out with for that very reason. I thought he would have been a lot quieter about things. So I was surprised when I saw him come out and say the things that he said. I wonder if that was actually against advice or whatever, but I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, can I jump in on that? Because like it's been interesting where in the beginning when we started this, we were reaching out constantly at across many different channels to get some sort of response, and it's only been recently that we've been getting some communication lines open, and these are like to people who talk to GoFund. This is not like some like they were present during this the DPEG event. They were active in trying to save the chain, and now we've been able to open up lines of communication. And what's surprising to me is like they're telling us like, oh yeah, we talked to GoFund, blah blah blah, and then they're saying to us, but hey, here's a little patch that you should do. And so it signals to me that like, well, why don't you just, to me, it's like, well, why don't you just do it yourself instead of giving it to us? And so that's sort of I guess a flag that, what, we can't, something is holding us back. We cannot touch this chain. Here you go, type of thing. So
yeah. All right. I had a question from someone on Twitter. All right. I'm going to read to you guys, and any one of you can pick it up if you want. Because I had put out a Twitter and asked, hey, if anybody has any questions, anything that you could ask, what would you ask? And I got a question from Hoplite. You guys might be familiar with. It says, I guess if I were going to ask one question on the behalf of the community, I would ask, how is the Terra Rebels DAO doing? Is official custody for LUNC with the DAO in works from our TFL contacts, or just a semi-permanent stewardship?
I think I'll let Matt answer this question.
Yeah, I think that's just a misunderstanding of what the purpose of our DAO is. Our DAO has got nothing to do with custody of the blockchain or Terra Classic. Our DAO is about how we run Terra Rebels itself as a decentralized organization. So once we get beyond this period of voluntary work and we move forward beyond to start creating value on top of the blockchain, we need to have a legal structure where we can operate as an organization, and people who want to continue operating with us will work in collaboration with that operation through a DAO, and the DAO will ensure that all members of the Terra Rebels organization will get to vote on the way that Terra Rebels is run and operated and the decisions that are made through a governance structure similar to the Terra Classic blockchain, but its purpose is purely for deciding on how Terra Rebels itself is operated. And we would hope to be able to build that DAO, the technology behind that DAO, on top of the Terra Classic blockchain itself as a smart contract.
So you guys have the intention of moving from a group of volunteers who are doing this to some sort of more official, structured, organization in some form.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
If I can pick into this a bit, I think a lot of our developers and tech people, they're enterprise people. And we are looking at saying, if we can fix this platform and restore governance, then we can start building a whole lot of enterprise-focused software that will enable enterprises to also start contributing to building value. So looking at stuff like targeting whatever chipsets directly for metaverses, so people can do like long-based derivatives inside metaverses fairly easily. Building out Kubernetes offerings that will make big companies have a lot easier time spinning up validators if they want to run, a lot of validator nodes and so on. and providing all sorts of other value-added services on top of the ecosystem that will attract businesses into this sort of community and start building the value. Because my personal belief is that the next bull market will be sort of the business bull market, and we need to be positioned to cater to this. And this is why we need to heal the community. We need to find some solid market makers. We need to get our act together and present a professional front to the world. Then we can start participating in the competition and move from the status of meme coin back up to, you know, a top 20 something, and maybe start making an actual impact on the world itself.
Well, we've got a lot of help, right? A lot of people jumping in, coining, Metagloria. The lunatic token guys just burned, right before we got on, just burned 50 million LUNC, right? The 2 days they've been an actual token, and they're jumping in and doing that kind of work. So yeah, there's a lot of community support. How are we doing with getting different businesses and stuff to come back and want to jump on this new software?
Well, we've set up a few teams to manage the communication with the D-app developers, and I think we have a list of 35 to 40 projects ranging from various NFT ideas to people wanting to build digital banks to people building, you know, space, starship, whatever, games. Mm-hmm. And all of these are, you know, basically looking to add value to the chain. So as soon as we have fixed governance and fixed the platform, we will pivot to try and advise and help them as much as we can, depending on where they are, to ensure that we start getting some value in, because we still have a bit of a, let's call it, debt burden in the system that we need to burn through. And the only way to do that is really to attract new investors, right? I mean, the current investors can sit around and fight over governance all day long, but if we don't bring new investors in, then we can't burn out the remaining bad debt and start to stabilize the system. And this is why it's so important to fix governance and get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah. Okay. Look a little bit into the future, right? I want to ask a question. We get governance going. Everything that you set out to accomplish, you feel like you pretty much accomplished. Obviously, other things always come up, like you said, but pretty much you're there, okay? Everything's working. It's getting back on its feet. Mm-hmm. You guys go off into the sunset back to your old lives, or do you hang around and keep an eye on this thing, you know, be it's, you know, whatever you want to call it, but, you know, keep it running? Do you stay?
I think, obviously, from an individual point of view, that question will depend on the individual. But from a Terra Rebels point of view, I think we can say that Terra Rebels is not going anywhere. Terra Rebels is there now for Lunar Classic and intends to be there for the long term.
I mean, in the way of being like the new TFL kind of thing? I mean, is that... No. We don't want to be characterized in that way. We've avoided that, and we've clarified that at every opportunity that we are not the new TFL. And the reason being is that in the TFL model, TFL had a significant degree of control over the blockchain through validator nodes that it directly controlled or indirectly controlled, and through the fact that it was the only body that could provide software updates into the ecosystem, and I mean core protocol software updates. We have demonstrated now that a third-party software team can come along and build their own test net, build their own software updates, test them to the point that everybody can be confident that those software updates can be deployed into the mainnet without causing any issues in the blockchain, which means that in the future, other software teams could come along and also offer their services to build or make changes to the core protocol. If Terra Rebels can do it, anybody can do it. And this is where we see the future for Terra Classic as a truly community owned and run blockchain.
There is no overarching entity or organization which has control. The control is exhibited by the community through the governance system.
Beautiful. All right. One of the other questions that I got quite often from the Twitter replies was about where this thing can go. And, I had to clarify that I don't think anybody's going to give a prediction. There's no point in doing that. Okay. But so let me ask it to you this way and see if you feel like this is a question you can answer. You guys are, and I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible for the non-technical people out there. Okay. You guys are fixing this in a way that it will not collapse the way it did the first time. Okay. The problems that existed the first time, you're circumventing those and fixing it in a way that doesn't happen again, correct?
The mechanism that actually caused the DPEG event is already disabled. It was disabled by TFL, and what we're doing doesn't reactivate that at this stage. And as we previously mentioned, we're looking at future solutions to that, the V2 algo, which will have to go through rigorous testing, rigorous reviews, obviously through the community governance system as well, before any new solution to having a repeg of USTC to the dollar or to some other value before that could be achieved. So the immediate work that we're doing now there's no way that there could be any repeat of the DPEG because there is no peg, and what we're doing doesn't at this stage doesn't try to restore that peg.
Okay, so which leads me into the actual question that the community has, at least the investing community. At one point before this crash, Luna, what it previously was, the original Luna version 1, had reached $119 a coin, something like that, right? Before the crash, it was 80 something dollars, maybe a coin. Then we saw it go down quite a bit, 4 zeros and 1 6. Where is it today? It's been hovering around 4 zeros 9, 3 zeros 1. It's right around there, yeah, still.
Somewhere around there, yeah. 4 zeros 1, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Why? Here's the question, and it might sound like a silly question, but it's a question I keep getting a lot. Why, if we are fixing this thing and hopefully making it better than it was, why are we looking at expectations of, well, maybe we can get to a penny? Oh, $1 is crazy. Why are we looking at such low numbers when, if we're fixing it better than it was, this thing used to be up to 119 bucks?
It's a factor of the minting of Luna that happened during the DPEG. So we now have a total supply of something like 6.9 trillion Luna, and that obviously when you go from, what was it, 300 and something million Luna to 6.9 trillion Luna, then the value of each individual coin is diluted massively, and that's the effect that you see in the price.
Well, what Matthew, with all these burn initiatives and the community is still strong and everything that you guys are doing, what if we get it back down to 100? What if we get it back down to close to where it was? I think 3568 called for what? To get it down to like 10 billion? Is that what, something like that?
I think if I can offer some perspective on this, I think that the problem in a nutshell is that right now all the tokens are distributed between a fairly limited amount of holders, right? It's maybe like 100 wallets that owns the majority of the tokens. These guys will be incentivized to hold on to them for as long as possible. That means that even once we start restoring the swapping mechanism, if we can fix the algorithm, once business comes in, that'll push up price a bit, but then they will start selling into that sort of uptrend. And that will keep price increases suppressed for a while, because we basically have to burn through somewhere around $10 billion worth of debt. As soon as we do that, we will see quite an interesting reversal, not unlike what Do Kwon actually hinted at one point, if I'm not mistaken. where we will see that Luna or Lunk could basically go to higher than potentially $100 if enough money came into a newly pegged system that had a swap feature like the one that was built, right? But it's just going to take a lot of time because a lot of tokens were printed. People are going to hold on to them to sell. They're not really being activated for business reasons. So that the capital isn't really flowing around in the system. And that makes the capital system less frictionless, so to speak, which means that it will take some time to burn through this before it becomes more frictionless and more efficient as an actual cash system. And once this happens, then price will start going up. And if more business comes in, then yeah, I mean, eventually we could beat the all-time high, but it won't happen if everybody's sitting on 1 billion tokens for waiting for $1. Then it'll just be another Doge moment where we'll go to something and then we'll crash back down to whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess the obvious question from that is, what's going on with CZ and all of what he's holding? What do you think he's holding it for? I asked the same question of the Lunatics token guys, and they had the same expression on their face that Ed has right now. But what do you make of that? What do you make of all of that he's holding, and what's his plan?
I guess you're referencing to the Binance wallet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, in general, most sixes, they have a hot and a cold wallet for all user funds. So the Binance wallet is not CZ's wallet. It is the sum of all user Lunk on Binance. It's the biggest exchange on the planet. Makes sense. They have a large amount of the tokens on store. And this is also why it will take some time to get to $1 because all of these are basically investors, right? And they might not necessarily be long-term holders, but that's something that we're also trying to encourage them to become. Because at the end of the day, if we can flip some of these trader whales to long-term holders and help or make them help build out the ecosystem, then that will also help the overall, state of things, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I've seen you guys get that question a lot in the Discord, and I've seen Zarada answer it the way he just answered it. But not everybody's in the Discord, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to cool, get that out to everybody else, and that's awesome. I appreciate it. I don't know if you guys want to speak on this or not. I'll leave it up to you. There's some weird stuff floating around with maybe what I would classify as maybe conspiracy theories, rumors, negativity, FUD, whatever you want to call it. And I know you know what do you want to address that at all?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, you go ahead, Matt.
Okay, I was just going to say that, welcome to the internet.
Yeah, I was going to say the literal same thing.
I think, when a group of people get together and try to do something good, there will always be detractors from that. And, no matter how good your motives are, no matter how much you try to present your actions in a positive and transparent light, there will be people who don't trust what you're doing for whatever reason. And where we see blatant publication of misinformation, we do our best to counter that by publishing the correct facts. But where it's just kind of typical internet fudding, we just try not to engage with it. Is our policy.
And if I can add a bit to that, please.
Go ahead.
I think it's also to, we try to do as Matt stated, but we also try to advise and help people and spread the truth when we can, because at the end of the day, we have to understand that a lot of the Lunk holders, they're essentially pretty traumatized. Some of them lost a lot of money. Yeah. It is perfectly natural for them to be upset. And I mean, all of us in Terra Rebels are professionals. We've all tried having a pissed off customer who had a bad day, and we try to treat it as such. Sometimes these things escalate a bit. We try to put whatever time we can into to helping people. And if we can't help them, we try to just disengage to not, make their situation any worse or any different. And then we focus on trying to fix the things that we can fix, because I mean, we know we can't save everybody, right? That's not our intention. Our intention is to fix the platform and then enable everybody to save themselves, because that's really how life works at the base layer.
Yeah. I think particularly in a market like this, a lot of the community is a bit jaded, maybe from some other development teams that might not be doing the best thing for the community, and maybe doing some things more for themselves than anybody else, which will go unnamed. I don't think we even need to name, because I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, so people are jaded, people are cautious. I get that part of it, okay. But I see you guys putting your faces out there. I see you doxed. We know about you. I see you taking of your life, where you could be spending it with your family and, out doing whatever hobbies, whatever it is that you want to do. And it's been, a couple months now? It seems like it's got to be every spare moment you guys have, you're working on this. Yeah. And I've talked to some of you guys who really aren't getting a lot of sleep. Everybody's filling different roles. I mean, when I see the negativity, I try to understand it from a certain perspective, from the perspective coming from whoever it is that's kind of spewing the negativity. But I also don't really understand it on a bigger level, because how can we look at what you guys are doing, what you're even doing today, and what you've done in the past, and have any question about the intentions, and not have really anything but appreciation for what you've accomplished. I personally wasn't invested before the crash. I'm one of those guys who said, I wish, I was invested before the crash, because some people got in really low and made a killing, and then, okay, they got screwed, but here's a second chance at it. So, now I'm invested. And if it stays where it is, I'm not going to make any money. I'm an investor. That's what I'm in this for. But if it goes up, if the price goes up, I'm going to do okay. And you guys are the guys who are responsible for that. It's going to be an unbelievable weight. So I appreciate you. I think a majority of the community appreciates you. Yeah, you're not going to make everybody happy. I mean, what can you really do about that?
If I can offer some perspective on that, first of all, I mean,
sure.
we appreciate the appreciation. But I also think, we're in it for—
I know how much you love praise, Arda.
Personal reasons, right? I started my journey into blockchains at the end of 2015. I worked for a bank. I saw how corrupt that system was. And I, decided that maybe this technology was a way to fundamentally alter one of the most important things in our society, which is our money system, and create an open, decentralized, transparent, and honest flow of money. And I have proof of work for this that dates back to 2016. So I can actually, prove that the intentions that I try to instill in Terra Rebels date back to that path. Because for me, everything I do is basically, a work of affection. I put in the hours because I want to make the world a better place. And my reward in that is getting to try to do that. That in itself is quite a remarkable thing to try to do. I don't claim to be any sort of special person or better than anybody else, but that is what I want to spend my life on, because quite frankly, I think we have to change the way crypto and blockchain works. We've had a long time of egos and capitalism and all of this, but now we need empathy and compassion. And we need to build an ecosystem with organic, healthy growth, where people are not malicious or predatory, but where they're working together to change the world, quite frankly. Because I believe that blockchains and crypto have the capacity to do that and are doing that every day. But right now, blockchains is in sort of an existential fight about whether or not it's going to be Swift 2.0 owned by Wall Street, or it's going to be this open, transparent money market for everyone. And for me, Terra Rebels is very much in the business of the latter, to ensuring that it's the people who own the future money system and not the, super rich.
I mean, that was one hell of a speech.
I've given it a lot of times for a lot of investors over the years.
Very sweet.
Maybe I can jump into here.
Go ahead, Ed.
Because when I look back at these past 2 months, my behavior is completely irrational. And I have a story, because a couple of years ago, I got my credit card bill, and it was like a $5 charge from Amazon Web Services from when I was at my old job. And I called them up, and basically the long story short was I couldn't cancel this. I couldn't get my money back for this $5 charge. And I spent, I don't know, maybe 20 hours on the phone with Amazon, with my old employer, with the credit card companies, trying to get this right. And I was like, this is not even worth it. This is $5. This is not worth it. And then my wife is like, no, you went this is about the principle, right? You went this far, just see it through. And then this whole thing happened with Luna Classic, and it's completely irrational. And I'm spending 80 hours a week trying to fix this thing. But it's really about the principle. It's this is what happened was wrong. The crypto space, this is rug pull after rug pull. And the principle of it is this is a place that I found that I could make a difference, make an impact. And there's it's not just my wife that's saying, just keep going. It's 5,000 people on Discord, saying, this is right. This is what needs to happen. And so, so that's what's driving me right now. It's completely irrational. I agree, but it's the principle of it. This needs to happen.
Yeah. What is that feeling going to be like when this actually works? Everything that, everything comes to fruition, all the culmination of all the hard work, when you can actually put your feet up and say, we did it.
I know what I'm going to do.
What's that going to,
I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit under a tree in a forest and touch the grass.
Some of us got that. That's awesome. Listen, thank you so much, guys, for being here. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out to the community before I let you go that we haven't covered yet?
Oh, I think we're good. I'm tired, so it's fine by me too.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's late where you guys are, right? It's going to be 10, 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Awesome. I'm going to let you go. I really, really appreciate you being here. There's quite a few people in the chat. Unfortunately, I'm not good enough to talk to you and get to that at the same time, but we'll get a little better with it as we go. So thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Everybody can go to the Discord. I'm going to link all that in the description, that you can go and talk to these guys directly. You don't have to wait for them to come online or whatever. They're there. Somebody's there all the time, because everyone is in all different time zones. So anytime you go on and ask a question, there's usually somebody there that's going to answer you. Yeah, we appreciate you. That's the last thing I have to say. So thanks for being here. Have a great night.
Have a good evening. Bye.
All right,
Bye.
guys. There he goes. It's funny when developers can't figure out how to use technology. All right, listen, everybody that came in and checked out this interview, thank you so much for being here. Oh, I'm getting confusing myself. I'm gonna put this up in a shorter version for you, so that if you want to come back and check it out, if you have any questions that I wasn't able to get to, leave them in the comment section, and I can get to these guys and we can get you some answers and such. But I really, really appreciate you all. Hit the like button if you could for me on the way out. If you haven't subscribed to the channel. I'm hoping for some more of these interviews. I'm pretty sure that Millennial and Happy Caddy, these guys, when they do an interview, you're going to get the good tech stuff. Okay. You don't get that from me. I bring you something a little different. Okay. But check everybody out that's involved in this thing, because we're all trying to do our part to help. All right. Thank you again for being here. Appreciate it. Have a great night.